Welcome to Lawyer Boss Life.
Welcome back to Lawyer Boss Life. I'm Alay, law firm coach and founder of Law Firm Success Group. I help attorneys scale their revenue while gaining freedom.
And I'm Chelsea. I'm a law firm owner, an entrepreneur, and toddler mom. I know it's possible to have an excellent income, work 40 hours or less a week, and take time off because that's what I do. Today, we're talking about hiring, why it's the most freeing move you can make, and how to do it without headaches. Alay, we have talked about hiring so much over the last year.
Yes, we have. It's really interesting to me that there just isn't much out there for attorneys in terms of learning how to hire, when to hire, who to hire, and then how to set that person up for success. And so when we work with clients, we spend a lot of our time going through, how to hire and grow your firm, because ultimately for most attorneys, that is going to be the constraint that puts a lid on growth. It's not marketing and business development. Typically, once you learn how to get clients, you can keep getting clients. It's having the staff and the team to do the work. That's where it really becomes a challenge for growth. What's been your experience with that, Chelsea?
Yeah, we're currently in a hiring phase, but we're always in a hiring phase.
Exactly.
And I didn't realize that that was the case probably until about a year ago, where I was like, okay, if we just get one more associate or one more admin staff, like I think we'll be set for a while. And then a month or two goes by and we continue to have business, we continue to have the demand. We set back in and it's like, nope, we need to have a job posting on LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, Indeed, all those places, essentially full time.
Yep. That's
Yep.
what you need to do if you want to grow your firm. And that's, we're going to cover in this episode a few key points for hiring that are coming out of my book, Staffing Up the Attorney's Guide to Hiring Top Talent. And one of the things in there is always be hiring, because whether it's for a staff position or an attorney position, you're going to always want to be looking. And there's a few reasons for that. One is your team members, they may not want to leave you, but they may leave. And there's nothing oftentimes you can do to keep them, because life happens. And so there will be a change in their lives that requires them to make a change and to leave your firm. When that happens, you don't want to be restarting a search from scratch. You always want to have, that hiring going, so you're always talking to top candidates. Number two, as your firm grows and expands, having that next person that you can bring in and plug in and train up and ramp up, it's going to be so much easier if you have a steady stream of candidates that you're talking to versus having to restart a search, every 6 months or so. The other thing is, you never know when you might find an amazing candidate. And even if you don't have it in your plan to bring them on board now, maybe you do anyway, because they're so good and you're like, wow, this person would be amazing. I don't mind investing a little early for this position because it's going to pay huge dividends. This person is going to be a phenomenal member of our firm for years to come. And so you go ahead and you make that opportunistic hire. So that's where always be hiring really kicks in. The other thing I want to mention, Chelsea, you talked about always, advertising now, having those ads out, which is fantastic. The number one overlooked area that people should be looking at for candidates, but they don't, is their own network.
Mm-hmm.
And so going through this exercise, over and over again, and I know we've done this too, Chelsea, thinking about who in your network you'd want to have working for you. And it's totally fine if there's no chance that they would ever do that. But just thinking about the kind of person you want to have will do a couple of things. First, if you do have an opening, you go to them first, right? You go to your dream team first and see if they either are interested themselves or if they might know someone who might be interested. And this may sound a little hokey, but it does work. You can call them up or text them or whatever and say, look, we're looking to hire for this position. We'd love to hire someone that has a lot of your characteristics. Who do you know who might be interested? And see what they say. They might say that, well, I'm interested, or they might refer you to someone else whom they know and trust. And those dream team members that you have are going to refer you more than likely to other really, really good attorneys and staff that would be fantastic additions to your firm. So having that list of top potential candidates, your dream team, is so important. Chelsea, when was the last time we went through that exercise?
About 6 months ago, before we took on two employees that I feel like have really been a game changer in our business using those exact same strategies. So you and I had this exact conversation about who else is in our network. We felt we had exhausted it. Turns out we didn't. We were just a little too almost shy, right? To reach out to, this particular person and made up all these reasons why they wouldn't come to us. Turns out none of those were real because she works for us now. Um, and at the same time, we also went after, an employee that we didn't think we needed in our firm. We weren't prepared to hire, but through these conversations, putting ourselves out there, talking to people, somebody else threw our name out there, and somebody reached out to us and said, "Hey, I'm looking for a move. Are you guys looking?" And we were like, "You're looking to move? Come work for us." And so it was really through that exercise that we ended up taking on an employee who, we hadn't necessarily budgeted for. We, weren't exactly sure whether the need was there. Turns out there was a huge need once we got her in. But all of this came between a conversation between Alay and I about Emily and I being burnt out. And we were sharing all the ways that we were feeling. We didn't realize we were burnt out, but we were like, "Hey, we're tired here." And Alay was like, "You guys seem like you're approaching a place in which it's time to hire." And so what are some of the things that you saw when you and I were talking, and Emily as well, talking about the changes we want to made that we wanted to make to our firm that told you, "Hey, you guys need more staff"? What were those signals to you?
Well, just how you both showed up in our meetings. It was really clear when we were talking that you both had a lot going on. You were being stretched in a lot of directions, and it was clear in your body language and your tone of voice and the topics we were discussing. The other thing too, and this may be more relevant to our audience, is we also did an exercise called the 20-10-5 rule. And
Mhm.
I mentioned this before on podcasts, but it's a diagnostic that will tell you if you're really spending too much time yourself in your firm, and if you're at the point where you need to hire. And the tools is like this: you think about where you're spending your time in a given week, and uh, think about it in three buckets. The first bucket is client work, not billable hours, because a lot of you are on flat fees, but just client work. The second one is marketing,
Mhm.
and the third one is law firm administration. And think about how much time you're spending in each of those three categories in a given week. The 20-10-5 should be about 20 hours of client work, 10 hours of marketing because you're trying to grow your firm. I know that seems high, but that's what you're trying to do. And then 5 hours of law firm admin. And if you're over in any of those three areas or under, it's a sign that you may want to do something differently. So in your case, I think, Chelsea, you and Emily work consistently in that somewhere between 20 and 30 hours a week of build time or client
Yep.
work that
Yep.
you were putting in. And then you, on top of that, you were blowing out the marketing time as well and the law firm admin time. So it
Mhm.
was clear that we had to bring somebody in to lighten the load on you both. And that's a really nice objective way to do that. For those of you who are litigators, every week is different. And so you may want to take those numbers, 20-10-5, and multiply it by 4, which is something like 80-40-20. I'm sorry. So 40 hours a month in client consultations and marketing, and then 20 hours a month in law firm admin. And if you can, if you're under those numbers, it will tell you things about those firms or about your firm. If you're over those numbers, it's going to really tell you what you need to do differently. Do you need admin help? Do you need to tweak your marketing? Or do you need to go hire attorneys and staff?
Yeah, I love that. And I really think that that is a great exercise in trying to figure out who to hire first. So I that really was an eye-opening exercise for our business. Is we were spending way too much time on admin, but at the same time we were also spending way too much time on legal work, so we couldn't spend enough time on marketing. And so we said, okay, we both need an attorney and admin support, right? And so we're always going to need to make adjustments down the road. And so you can just say, okay, I need a lawyer, I need somebody to do paralegal work, and so I can charge a lower hourly rate, or I need somebody to answer more phones, whatever it is that you need. The bigger issue for me is not just getting somebody to sit in that seat and do the job, but it's finding and attracting A players. So what are some of the strategies that you share about finding A players?
Well, this is especially true for small law firms because just on a salary basis, you can't compete with big law firms. But there are lots of ways that you can compete with big law firms for the right kind of person. I'll tell you what the wrong kind of person is. The wrong kind of person is the one who's just chasing the paycheck and they just want to get paid as much as possible and they're happy, they don't have any loyalty to anything else. That's not a good fit.
Yeah.
But someone who is a good fit is someone who has great cultural alignment with the rest of the firm. And if this is your first hire, they should have great cultural alignment with you. And what do I mean by cultural alignment? I'm really talking about values, why they practice law, what characteristics of being in a firm are important to them. What are some of the things personally that are their principles and the way that they operate? Those are really, really important. So that's the first thing, is to make sure that there's an alignment there of culture and values. The second thing is it's not just about the work. So if they're coming in, they should have genuine passion for the kind of work that you do and genuine passion for the kinds of clients whom you serve. And one of the ways to really uncover that is to ask different questions during the interview. So one of the issues we oftentimes see when we work with the clients on how to interview is they'll ask lots of yes, no questions. So an example would be of a yes, no question would be, um, have you taken depositions? Yes.
Right.
Okay. Have you drafted a letter? Yes. Those are really easily answered, yes or no, and it's really easy for someone to bluff their way through that without giving you any real information. So an alternative might be, tell me about the toughest deposition you ever took. What was that like and how did you get through it?
Mm,
Or tell me about a time when you had to draft a document on a really tight timeline. How did you get that done? Right? That forces the person to dig into their past, come up with a story, and then share that story with you. That's a lot harder to fake. And you're
mm,
going to learn a lot more about the person as they go through that process. The other point there is uh, I love having some sort of a test for all candidates when they come in for the in person interview. Have them do some sample work or give them a potential case for them to break down and analyze. We're not talking about a lot of time, less than 2 hours of their work should go into this. But when they come in, they'll have some work product that you can take a look at. And you two can have a conversation about. And you can ask them, okay, I see you did this. Why'd you do that? Why did you take it in this direction? What are your thoughts on this? You can also, gives you an opportunity to just do the basics, check for grammar, check for spelling, check for attention to detail,
right.
because all of those things can easily be faked in the interview and it can come back to bite you. And then when you want to bring them on board, make the offer not so much about the paycheck, but about all their compensation. So there's some things you can provide that larger firms will not. One is experience. The level of experience you give them, they will learn a lot more at a small law firm than at a big law firm because they get to work directly with you. The other one is the different perks that come with being in a small law firm, more flexibility, hybrid work potentially, remote work potentially, um, bringing pets into the office if you'd like,
Hmm.
more vacation, the ability to participate in profit sharing. These are all things that small law firm owners can offer to employees that larger firms, may not want to. One of my clients decided, because it was part of their culture, that they wanted to offer a complimentary gym membership. So that's what they did. Like, you can throw in those kinds of things, and for the right person, it can make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like those are the conversations you and I have had many times through our coaching experience, because, we are a smaller firm. And when you're smaller, getting, creative with compensation really goes a long way. And for us, we really have focused on asking our team what's important to them. We ask our team right now, right? We have a really solid team. Everybody supports each other. Everyone does a really excellent job at, coming together and serving the clients in a consistent way where all of our clients are getting a really good experience, from each person that they're connected with. But we ask them, what do you guys want to do? We can go out to dinner, to celebrate people's birthdays. We can do this, we can do that. And we just ask them. We have celebration surveys that we give our employees, and we say, okay, if you had $1,000 to spend, what would you buy? $500 to spend, $20. How are you motivated by work? Is it money? Is it bonuses? Is it, words of affirmation from your team? What is it? And we use that information to cater to our next employee, because if they're attracted by those things, then they're going to be a great cultural fit for us. Of course, everybody's going to be a little bit different. But we really focus on those types of things. And I think it has made a difference in the type of energy we put out when we talk to candidates. This is about joining a team. We don't use the word family, but we use the word team a lot, right? We're here to support everyone's goals. And I really think that has been a difference maker with some of the people we've been able to attract. We're taking everyone into the Giants game in a couple weeks. We're closing down the office, going to a Giants game for the whole day, bringing families and everything like that. And it just feels like a huge gift to be able to do that with a team you actually enjoy being around. So I really find that finding those little ins with people make a world of difference. The biggest accomplishment I can say is as having people that worked for me that don't anymore because they explored other opportunities still text me and say, we, whatever, loved working for you. It's the best thing you can do. It's the best feeling in the world.
That's fantastic. One of the things that you and I think Emily have done a really good job of, Chelsea, is you've done a really nice job of figuring out how much to pay somebody.
Mm.
And take us through that process a little bit, because I think it would be really helpful for the audience to hear about how you set that maximum.
Yeah, we are a little bit flexible, right? You hear in law firms, sometimes there's this like 30%, like, or a third, right? Whatever it is, where, they should make a third of their billables, a third should go to overhead, and a third goes to the owners. We kind of use that as a starting point of like, are we in the, range of where we need to be? We ask a lot of questions about what other firms are doing, but unlike some other firms, we don't have a set compensation plan for every level of employee. So it's not like all of our first year associates get paid this, second year associates, senior associates. You have to look at, well, what is that person doing, right? We start with a very baseline, payment schedule. And after a year, we kind of reassess what are the strengths of that employee? How are we maximizing their use? Maybe they don't bill as much, but they add a lot of value in other places like networking, or, they tend to do a lot of the non-legal stuff, but the fact that a lawyer is doing it is very helpful. You have to be a little flexible. Not everything can be just based on your, KPIs, your key performance indicators. Sometimes it has to be, what is the value to the firm? But it starts with, let's just get them in the door and let's assess what they're billing, and then use that third guide to see if we're in place. And some of that really starts with, the systems that we have for assessing this, right? Which goes to reviewing our KPIs, having billable requirements. All of these things are part of our systems so that we can analyze, how to make sure that we're bringing in top talent and paying them what they're worth. And it's a hard mindset to have, to make sure that, employees are feeling the value of their work, for sure. And I'm sure you've seen that with other law firm owners as well.
Yeah, one of the big mistakes we see owners make a lot, and that's why I asked you, because you have not made this mistake, is they hire the cheapest person they can find.
Mm.
And I totally get it. Cash is tight. You're taking a big risk. It's a big outlay to bring someone on board. But when you're hiring the cheapest person, they oftentimes tend to be the least experienced person.
Mm-hmm.
And that can create a lot of problems because you're already busy. And now on top of everything else, you got to train somebody and train them from the ground up. It's going to take a tremendous amount of your time. And you don't know if they're going to work out or not. Sometimes it makes sense to do that. But oftentimes, especially if you're looking at your first hire or your second hire, go hire someone who's going to make you a ton of money. All
Yeah.
Right. And that's not going to be the cheapest person. It may or may not be the most expensive person, but they're going to cost a lot of money. But the thing is, it's not really a cost. Because if you run the numbers, you're going to be making money every hour that they bill, you are making money. So if you hire an attorney or a paralegal as your first or second hire, you can really increase the profitability of your firm. Typically, the rule of thumb I found, and I'm curious how this meshes with your experience, Chelsea, for most of my clients, if the attorney or the paralegal can bill about 10 hours a week, they're going to cover their costs. And everything on top of that is going to be profit for the firm in some fashion. Chelsea, does that match with your experience?
Yeah, exactly. You look at what's the minimum they have to bill. And usually it's much more surprising than a lot of business owners and law firm owners think it is, right? It's much lower than you think. If they just build this amount, they're going to cover their salary, right? So you break even and you're getting experience. But if they build just this much, that is profit in your pocket. So you got to know the numbers. You have to get comfortable with the math. I know lawyers, numbers is not their favorite thing, but you have to know your numbers so that you can offer a salary that is going to motivate and keep those employees happy, but also are going to be justifiable and profitable for your business. So knowing the numbers, having the systems in place, and being able to get over the, oh, am I going to have enough work for them? You've got to do the work to get the clients in the door. And in order to do that, you have to have more time to do it, which means hiring somebody else to do those legal work. And so last thing I want to hear from you about this is, what have you seen? And maybe we've talked about it, is what are the immediate mindset shifts that lawyers need to do to be able to say, okay, it's time to delegate these tasks?
Yeah, great question, Chelsea. So I think the first thing is making sure that it is time to delegate those tasks, because to the extent that you're overwhelmed or to the extent that you have a lot of time in your hands, maybe it is or maybe it isn't. Assuming it is time, that you are either over on admin or over on billables or not spending enough time marketing because you're doing too much client work or you're doing too much admin, that's the time to go out and hire. And again, we talked about the mindset shift that has to occur is thinking about that next hire as someone who is going to make you money. They're not going to cost you money. They're going to make you money. And it's going to happen a lot sooner than you might think. They don't have to bill 30 hours a week to make you money. Oftentimes, 10 hours a week will cover their costs. And then everything after that, you get some of that money in your pocket, and you have an employee who's going to take some of the load off of your shoulders.
Absolutely. And having the information that you need, like I said, the KPIs, the numbers, having all of that is going to give you the confidence as a business owner to execute that plan, bring on somebody, right? Your next hire could unlock the next level of your law firm. That is really the truth. It's not you. It's not your skills. It's that next hire. So for hiring tools and coaching support, visit lawfirmsuccessgroup.com. Do you know another lawyer who's overwhelmed by solo practice? Share this episode with them. Reach out to us. We want to talk about it. Alay and I want to talk about these things that, him and I will talk offline all the time about these topics. I'm still hiring at this moment, so it's always on the top of my mind. Please like, follow, subscribe, and leave a comment. We're building this show with you in mind.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.